Perfect. Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? We're going to go ahead and get started on today's session. Super happy and grateful to be on here, number one. Number two is you guys taking the time out of your day to being on this on the Saturday, which is honestly insane and amazing because it shows that you're here to level up and learn different things. Wherever you're finding us, either if you're within Powerhouse already, or you're just finding us on YouTube, or you're from the Crypto and Assets channel, whatever it is, welcome in and go ahead and let me know in the chat box where you're tuning in from. I see Deborah on the call. Nice to see you always on the sessions, Deb. It's always love to see that. And I know you're learning so much. Like it's crazy. It's really cool to see so many people that study the markets and learn the markets and had zero experience like myself, and like they know so much, right? So shout out to you, Deb, for being on here. And what's up, Jojo? Always here, brother. I love to see it. So we're saying now we're gonna go ahead and get started on today's session. Really today I'm gonna go ahead and start today. You guys already know. On these sessions, we usually have myself and my brother John Luke, which he will be on today's session as well. But he will be coming a little bit on the second half of today's call. We're gonna go ahead and with what I like to do is I like to go into the actual chart work. I like to talk about a little bit what's going on in the markets, what's their potential, where it could go, and why things are happening. And right now it's a very interesting times, right? It is exciting if you're a football or soccer fan or just a sports fan, obviously with the World Cup. And there's a lot of things that, in my opinion, um things are done for a reason, right? And I will talk about that, about really the markets as we can see are actually going down in the stock market. Crypto has gone a little bit down as well. And there's a lot of factors within that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen over here and kind of start with what's going on and why it's happening in the first place, and really other potentials of what we can see the markets when it comes to all markets, because I want you guys to realize that this is crypto and assets, right? It's not just going to be about crypto. It's also going to be about stocks. It's going to be about commodities. It's going to be about different assets to talk about on this session. Now, I also want to keep you guys in mind, this is more of like an investing side. So this is not specifically trading, it's more investing. So we're talking about more about portfolio, about potential maybe economy, things like that. And how can that affect the market? So the first thing I want to kind of go through is the stock market. As we can see, we look at the big three, we see NAS 100, you see SPX, you see US 30, right? These are the top three indices. This shows kind of the health of the stock market at the moment. And as you guys can see, and I believe I talked about this, is we have rejected these highs, right? We have rejected these highs on the NASDAQ. We've rejected highs on the SPX, and we even are rejecting highs on the US 30. Okay. Now, this is something that I was waiting to happen just because we were very high in the market. We were very bullish, like you like to say. And I was expecting, oops. I was expecting tops to come in. Now, is the top end? I don't know. I'm not saying forever, definitely not. But I think there's a current top, because you got to look at the markets, right? The market creates, as you can see in the indices, creating higher highs and higher lows. And you can see that every time it tanks, it recovers pretty rapidly, right? It's happened here in 2025. It happened here in 2026. And right now, I personally do like and do see this coming back down at least to maybe here before it wants to continue. Because as you can see, the last time it did this, it came here, right? It came back to the previous floor. Like that's what the market on the higher time frame really likes to do. So like if me to just give you examples, you can see this here, right? Because that's one thing I like about the markets is you can see the past. Not that it's going to dictate exactly what's going to happen, but it's going to give you some sort of understanding of what had happened and what could happen to come, right? So as we can see, the market here in 2021 created a high, came down. It took a while actually to come back, but when it did, it created new lows in the same area, right? You see this. You got the high, and then it created a floor. Then what happened? The market created a high, came back down, and created a new floor. And the market didn't come exactly into it like it did here, but it came very close. And what did it do again? it went from creating a high to creating a low. So that's why my point of view is I like somewhere in this area for the market to come back in here before we go more bullish, because I don't think the economy is going to crash. Like, inflation right now is BS. Like, me being honest, it's not legit. And the reason why is because I see this World Cup, people paying thousands of dollars a ticket, and stadiums are packed. Like, it's already the World Cup, and I'm talking about a lot about the World Cup because I think it's a direct correlation of the economy and where things are at, and why even things are going down during things like this. Because most people aren't seeing the markets during the World Cup, right? Most people aren't paying attention, and that's where moves are being made. I'm a soccer fan. I love it. I've watched basically every game at this point. But I obviously still clocked in with the church, and I realized that when there's things like this happening, and mostly right now, this is destined to be and already kind of is the biggest and the most watched World Cup ever. Well, obviously, in the market side, there's going to be plays are going to happen. Just FYI. But anyways, I really like this for it to come down before it wants to continue. Okay. I personally can see a bearish going into the end of the year, going into next year. I really like 2027 to be a very opportunist year, to be honest. And this is what I'm looking for when it comes to the indices. So when I look at all stocks, I'm looking at potential retracements into these areas, and that can affect every other stock that we've talked about, right? Obviously, individual stocks can move without the indice having to move, right? Just because it's everything is weighed at the end of the day. But I think really there's just so much opportunity in the stock market right now. Things are still going to be a consolidation. I don't see a big stock creating higher highs, all-time highs, um, anytime soon. Like, in the next couple months, for a lot of different reasons. Again, like I told you guys, a lot of people are having eyes in the World Cup. There's not a lot of money being moved right now. The volume isn't very high to what it usually is. Okay. So just keep that in mind. But one thing I do like is when there's events happening, there's things happening that people are looking at and not looking at the markets. That's when I like to look for lows. Okay, that's when you like to look to lows. When most people aren't looking, that's when you want to look. So when we talk about the stock market, and you talk about some of these that we've been talking about, I mean, all of these are amazing opportunities. Circle is back in our DCA zone that we've been talking about. This is an area that I'm already going to be looking to accumulate probably this going into Monday morning. I really like what it's doing right now. I think this week gave great opportunity. I really like the fact that on the daily, it created an engulfing candle, engulfing volume, engulfing candle, engulfing volume. If you don't know, I'm not going to explain it on this call. But these are bullish signs for this. So I personally really like where things are at with the bigger ones that we've been talking about. Paramount, same thing. Snapchat, same thing. Even Netflix, even though it came below my zone, I really like the fact that it swept a lot of this. I really like Netflix is very positive. They have earnings happening in the middle of July. So I think they're going to be positive, just saying. And same thing with even something like Nike. I really like what Nike's doing right now. I just really like the rejection that it's giving. There's a lot of volume here. That shows that there's buyers, there's sellers, there's interaction. And then we do have some stocks that have seen the upside. One of them that we talked about that we're actually up right now is Hims. We talked about Hims around here, and we're already up on this, right? PayPal is coming out of the area. I really like what is going on. Disney could potentially give us another idea around here before it continues. And then shout out to Klarna. Klarna was actually given out by our co-founder, Junior, and we're actually in profit right now. I remember when he told me about this crypto, I was in North Carolina at an event out there, and we were like around here. So we're up on this for sure, like 50% in our portfolio. That's what I'm saying. Some of these stocks will move when indices are going down because again, they're independent stocks. The indices are just a way of certain things. So I really like a lot of these. Even if something like Coinbase, which I haven't gotten in myself, I personally been liking below 125. I wanted to sweep this liquidity. Okay, I like this area. If crypto continues to go down, I can definitely see this happening and giving great opportunities here. Okay. So, like I said, there's a lot of opportunity, mostly with the ones that we've been talking about. This is your time to keep your eyes open and say, okay, where am I going to position myself? if you're in some of these already, then let them run. Things like Hims or Klarna, it's I wouldn't get in now. It's kind of already did its thing. If it gives it another entry, then maybe we can, right? So now let's go a little bit into crypto. Now, one thing that happened that already happened twice technically in the last week, because I know last week we didn't have a session, is that we have been below this 60K area, right? We've broken below the 60K area not just once, but twice. A lot of cool things actually. I'm not gonna talk about too much into this. I am gonna actually point out because we don't do this often, but I like to do this when I can. I do want to point out though, something that one of our educators talked about on his last session. And if you're a part of Zinner already, I highly recommend to check this out because he talks about Wyckoff. And the reason why I'm talking about this because right now I really like what the market is doing when it comes to Bitcoin and showing accumulation. Now I don't think it's accumulation for like from now to the next month. I think it's accumulation for the next 5 to 6 months. But it is the start of accumulation. So I highly recommend if you haven't yet, here with Valentino under Zinrai, under foreign exchange, even though it's trading, it still applies to investing. And he talks about Bitcoin as well. I highly recommend to watch this session. He goes very in depth with Wyckoff. If you do not know what Wyckoff is, I mean, you can really look at it in different horizons. But Wyckoff, theory is something that has been around for many, many, many years. You can look at this website even if you want to. It's there. But Valentino did really good at breaking it down. Information is out there, but not everybody's willing to break it down for the newest person, right? So it talks about Wyckoff, and this is kind of what I like to see in Bitcoin. I think right now we're literally barely here. I think we have a lot of time to go, in my opinion. But there's a couple of signs that we really like that has happened. Number one is we like when the market, like on the daily, for example, we want to see, okay? Yeah, we want to see this market do something called divergence. Now, what does that mean? I want to see this market create higher highs while this is at and this volume is actually creating lower lows. Okay. That is the one thing I want to see, which we haven't seen yet, right? Literally right now, volume and price is aligned. So it's not really divergence. That's what I think we still have time to go. Now my perspective is I don't know if we can see this here. If we do, that would be amazing. But if we see this, like that would be crazy. But honestly, I kind of see something like this happening. Like I see this just sticking here and chilling here for a minute, like maybe to like the end of the year, go into October, November, and go in something like that. That's what I want to see. Again, a lot of people are tired. A lot of people are wanting to get out of the market. That's where opportunity lies. So I think there's a lot more people to get out in the market, and I think we are here. Like I personally think we're here. So I think there needs to be a callus, like what happened in depression, to maybe even give us hope and then kill the hope, here. So I really seeing something like this in a big candle to take a lot of people out, but it not to last and then recover quickly. Could this be something that we look for? Potentially. And this is, again, it's something like this that I'm really looking for when it comes to Bitcoin. And like I said, everything will follow Bitcoin because it's still in that horizon. So I still think we have time, right? I personally do. I'm not saying to not like get into anything. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying we do have time. Even Ethereum, Ethereum has been hanging out in this for so long for it not to take out this liquidity. So I want to see a 1200, a 1300, a 1400 Ethereum. That is going to be a really good sign for just opportunity in the marketplace, and giving opportunities for other altcoins as well. Even something like Solana. If Ethereum, if Bitcoin go below here, we will see Solana in the 50 zones. That's kind of where I want to look. As you can see, I have an alert right here. There's an imbalance right here that I see can happen. Which is honestly insane because last time this happened, that happened. So like, can we see something like this happen again? I don't know, right? But I really like this Solana. I haven't seen anything negative about it. It's still doing its thing. Again, it's quiet times, but like I said before, there was quiet times here. Like literally, I remember when people were buying at 11, 12, 15, 20. Look at that. That's a 10, 20x. Like people are like, oh, there's not a lot of opportunity in this cycle. Yeah, there was. Not in every asset, right? Which is something to really look into. Now, one thing I do want to see is I want to see something like this. I want to see this pull back and show me amazingly bullish volume. Like that's what I want to see right now. Like you can see, it's dead volume. I don't see anything happening during the World Cup. Just being very honest. I've studied it. I've already told you guys in the last two sessions. 2 weeks ago, I told you guys the what it's been every World Cup. The markets are dead, right? And it's not a coincidence. But most of the time, those are the bottoms. Just saying. I'm not saying that's gonna happen. I'm just saying from stats and data. If you look at the dates, if you look at what Bitcoin was in December of 2022, I mean, I'm sorry to tell you, but that was the bottom. That was the last World Cup. And interesting enough, it was moved to December. It was the weather. Yeah, cool. It could have been the weather, but there was a reason why Qatar was hosting that World Cup, and that was done in December. Everything has its science. Everything has its reason. Nothing is a coincidence. Never forget that. Okay. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot of odds now. One crypto that is starting to recover and showing amazing rejection is Aave. We call this out. I mean, we've been talking about under $100, but I was looking for it around $60. And it literally came and rejected amazingly. Even the volume right now is looking great. Really, this bearishness happened with like hacks and stuff, but I told you guys before that that actually was bullish for me because the last time that happened was around here. The last time Aave had hacks and people were skeptical, and I don't know, that's when the bottom was in and it cranked up, right? So I really like Aave. Again, it's a boring project. Like, look at this volume. Like, this looks beautiful. So if you're not in this, I would wait for maybe like a pullback here and then go in. But really, anything under $100, I think it's worth it to me, because taking profit around 300 is a 3x. Like that is amazing. Then taking profit off 400 is a 4x. That is literally all you need. Like a lot of people would are gonna say, "Oh, well, can this go to 700?" Yeah, it can, of course, it's possible. But is it? Do you have to hold to then? No, because if you get three, four X's every 4 to 5 years, with a period of time, I'm telling you, you will be way more fortunate than most people. But my lessons of these markets have been is wanting to get out at the top, wanting to hold a little bit too much, because of the excitement of what it can become without knowing that this is a 10, 15, 20, 30 year game. At least from what I've studied and from the educators that we have and from the people we've heard from, and even if the people that you all know of, the Warren Buffetts, the really any investor in history, they can tell you the exact same thing, right? So those are the things I would look at, right now, even for example, Ondo. I love Ondo. Ondo is looking super bullish in my opinion. It's saying so strong, but it could potentially take this before it goes, right? The fact that it's been here, it could. But I really like Ondo. I like how it's doing its thing. It didn't create a lower low during this whole bearishness, and I think that's very bullish. I think there's a lot of money going into Ondo. I like the volume of Ondo, as you can see here. Like, look at this monthly candle. Like monthly candle, huge, huge, right? Can we reject here and then continue higher, right? So there is a lot of opportunity. You just got to look at it. Start with the main cap coins. If you don't have any cryptos, start with the main caps, right? Yes, you can get some Bitcoin at this moment. That's fine. Like, guys, we're like what, 60% down from all-time highs? That's not bad. Like, before I was saying no because it's only a 10, 20% growth, but just being real, like there's nothing wrong with that, right? Ethereum, same thing. Ethereum has a amazing upside from all-time highs. Okay. Solana, I mean, same thing, amazing upside from all-time highs. So I would start looking at the main caps first and then getting into the other ones as well, and to not diversify yourself too much. That's my other piece of advice. All right. So that's really what we're looking at now. Even if you're looking at something like IBIT is something obviously you can add to your like Roth IRA. It's obviously like the stock, the stock trust of it, like the ticker of in the stock market, which is pretty dope. I really like where it's at. I love it. It came out around here. And we are in great areas. Like I really like it. Like where it's at is amazing. Like we're actually down around the same, obviously. But I really like it. So if you're looking to add it to your Roth IRA or start to continue, I think this is a good start. This is what I'm gonna be looking at for the next couple months. And yeah, it just gives you great opportunity. And personally, like I know before you're like, oh, you want to own your Bitcoin. Yes, but for me, in my opinion, if you're one to invest in Bitcoin and you have a Roth, I mean, I wouldn't think it's a bad thing at all. Like I don't think it's a bad thing. And then having your other cryptos with higher potential because Bitcoin isn't going anywhere. Now, where every other crypto survive, I don't know. I can't tell you that. But Ethereum is obviously owned by the US, so I don't think that's going anywhere. And I just think crypto has a lot of money, but it's not just going to be in crypto. A lot of money in crypto will be also be in the stock market. So you got to look at it in different aspects there, okay? And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is oil, okay? The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I'm not gonna say I told y'all because I'm not like a genie. I don't know everything, right? But I did say that we were gonna see bearishness in June. Why? Because the last time this happened, December was the bottom. It was bullish all the way to June, and we went bearish. What happened again? December was the bottom, created highs, and basically May, June was the highs of this market. So we are down. As you can see, gas prices where you're at have gone down, but there is a delay. So like right now, we're actually seeing it like here. Okay, so there is a delay. I personally think that this is it. I don't think it's gonna go any higher. Just looking at history, fam, like this only happens in sporadic times. Like, and again, things can change, right? But this only happens sporadic times. So I think it's kind of dead. Oil is gonna come back to normal prices. Everything is gonna be like okay. And there's next things to happen. Right now there's a lot of things happening with in the stock market. Things that I looked up is that there's big institutions that are getting out of like the Nasdaq or like that's what Nasdaq is going down, right? But like big tech companies and are going into things like healthcare. That's something to look into because remember, big money knows what's happening before it happens. So maybe can we look at something like Pfizer? Okay, I'm not gonna go into politics. I'm not gonna go into that. I know we're on YouTube. I don't want to get shut down or anything, right? But if you guys don't know about this company, look up this company. Look what they did in 2020, right? Just FYI. I would look into something like this. Start looking at maybe healthcare companies. Because I mean, if institutions are doing it and they're looking at that and they're diverting their money, could there be something happening? I just think we're living in good times, and good times creates opportunity for not bad things to happen, but something to bring the market down before it wants to go higher. Okay, I just want you guys to realize we're not living in an economy where people don't have money. I think that is portrayed on the news. Now, is it harder? Yes, but guys, let's be real. If you go to the supermarket, it's full. If you go to the airports, it's full. If you go to the mall, it is packed. If you go to the FIFA World Cup, it is the most attended with the highest tickets in history that everybody was going crazy about. I was like, bro, they're going to go down. Like, I literally said they're going to go down. And guess what? They ain't going down, and people are there. So I'm just saying things are actually way better than what the statistics are showing, than what the news is showing. So I'm just saying, could this be the opposite of what it usually is? When most people think it's bad, it's actually going good. When people think it's going good, it's actually going bad. Like again, it's all a mind game and it's all something to just stay attentive to and just to be aware of. So that's my 2 cents. I hope you guys got some game. Like put a 5 in the chat if you guys learned something or got something out of today's sessions. But guys, there's a lot of opportunity. Stay locked in. Obviously, have fun, watch World Cup like I am. But this is the time to kind of look at your portfolio, say, am I just holding? Am I adding or what I'm doing, right? But other than that, I want to go ahead and pass it to my brother John Luke. As you guys know, we run this together. We've been running this for a very long time, and you have both of us together here now, which we have for a couple of times now, right? Until the next trips that we have. We'll see when that happens. But other than that, I'll let John Luke take it over. You guys already know John Luke is somebody who has a lot of experience in this. He gives a whole different perspective of the markets as well. So I highly recommend to take notes because I say this all the time, and I don't just say that to say that, like I mean it. What he breaks down is things that most people never talk about. They never look at it in this other horizon. And that's why I think the duo that we have here is honestly very special. So with saying that, bro, John Luke, bro, I appreciate you being on here. And now I'll let you take it away, brother. I'm gonna make you co-host right now, and you should be good to go.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it. Yeah. Put a 10 in the chat if you guys can hear me and see me just because of the audio setup and everything. I just want to make sure it's working. So put a 10 in the chat if you can see me and hear me. What Gil broke down was amazing. Yeah, I was definitely paying attention to that. And it's key to understand the technical side of things, but also how the World Cup and the entertainment industry is going to be affecting the markets. And that's something which um, is growing, is growing massively. I mean, the entertainment industry is literally booming, and especially in America, which is funny because it's during Trump's administration. So this is only going to help the economy and grow the economy over here. So yeah, I see tens. Okay, amazing, brilliant, brilliant. So I'm going to break down as usual some of the news, some of the fundamentals that has happened in the past weeks. And the reason why I like to break this stuff down, guys, is not just so you can seem more intelligent, not just so you can, seem like you're an expert in the markets and everything, but really it's because you can take this information and now invest more confidently. You can invest knowing, okay, this company does X, that crypto does Y. And it's one thing just investing money or trading with an asset that somebody told you to buy, or with something that an educator recommended, or one of your mentors or coaches. But it's another thing to invest when you know one or two key facts, because you're actually going to invest more. Put a 5 in the chat if you guys agree that when you know more about the company or the crypto, you're willing to actually put more money in. Put a 10 in the chat if you guys can relate to that. Like, the more you know about it, the more confident you are. And so the more money you're able to put in, because you're like, I'm not just blindly investing from what my mentor said. I'm investing knowing that this has one or two facts that I like. Do you guys understand what I'm talking about here? So that's really the purpose behind why I like to break down what I like to break down. Because when you don't know a lot, you'll invest like 30% of your disposable income into crypto. But then when you know a lot, you'll invest like 60% of your disposable income. That's just naturally how it works. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to dive right into this for the next 20 minutes. So let me go ahead here, share. Amazing, because I have some cool news items to dive into, which is cool. So what's been going on in the past week, maybe like week and a half. So what we have, let me see here, the chat, everything's sweet. So 3 news items. 2,200% surge in Ripple tokenized real world assets. I'm going to break that down. Secondly, Morgan Stanley adding more BTC. We're going to get to that. And stablecoin reward rules. So the first thing is this surge in Ripple tokenized RWA. So what is RWA? Many of you probably know this. It's a real world asset, right? It's a crypto that has real world utility. This is the stuff for beginners that are like, hey, this blockchain, internet, like digital stuff, how does it affect my life today? Well, that's what a real world asset is. A real world asset is something like property, real estate that is tokenized. A real world asset is something like the fact that you can use Bitcoin to buy chocolate bars or to buy drinks from a vending machine. That has a real world purpose. A real world asset is the World Cup's going on right now. Well, imagine if tickets were tokenized as NFTs, and those NFTs were limited in supply, and people couldn't resell it at extortionate prices. Because think about it. What's one of the biggest... Oh, you see that black box? Yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't know why this black box is here. Like, I literally, I actually can't remove it. I know what I'm gonna do though. I'm gonna put this over here, and I'm gonna move this screen over to this screen. There we go. So a real world asset, guys, if you ever have someone come up to you, your mom, your dad, your uncle, your auntie, your sister, like, hey, like, what's this crypto stuff? Like, how does it affect my life? Here's an example you can tell them. You can tell them the real estate one, but you can also tell them, hey, have you ever heard, mom or dad, of these like tickets for concerts being resold at extortionate prices? Have you ever heard about these World Cup tickets being the most expensive World Cup tickets in history? You know, I went to a game in Houston. I watched Portugal Congo, and it was a few $100s because I got really, really lucky with a friend. But guess what? The retail, like the reselling, was $2,000 minimum on the day, like 2,000 minimum. That's just to sit anywhere in the stadium. So when you tell, hey, mom and dad, like, did you know that this is a real life problem, that people don't have the money to afford to watch the World Cup, to watch Beyonce? And your mom and dad's like, yeah, I know that's a problem. Well, guess what? Crypto comes into play, because if FIFA, who is the company behind the World Cup and football globally, if they tokenized these tickets, they have the ability to limit not only the number of tickets, but to limit the resale price, where it's impossible for these resellers to sell tickets for 10K, 20K, because the limit could be $1,000 max. And they have the ability to do that because all it is, it's a change in the blockchain. That's all it is. All it is a coder, a developer behind a computer that says maximum 1K, boom. And now it's out there, and now it's out there buying on OpenSea, which is the marketplace for Ethereum, the NFT marketplace, or it's out there on what's the other one that comes to mind? Solana NFTs, for example, Magic Eden, that's the marketplace for Solana. So that's just an example, but that's what a real world asset is. And so Ripple, which is the company behind XRP, many of you probably own XRP, they have a function of tokenizing real world assets. And what I found interesting is that Ripple are looking to expand not just from cross-border payments, because that's their main function, by the way, cross-border payments, right? There's banks in South America that XRP is being used right now to make cross-border payments, right, from here to Mexico or here to England, wherever, to make it faster, to make it cheaper, to make it more secure. They're looking to expand to actually have financial infrastructure as their services, not just cross-border payments. So they're saying, like, all right, we're the best when it comes to this thing, but we want to expand our services to actually like encompass everything in the financial infrastructure, which is great because that's just expansion of the business. And so when I look at this 2,200% increase for tokenized real world assets, all that tells me, guys, all that tells me is that it's becoming more popular, is that the usage of this is increasing. And we know this because we've seen real world assets industry just grow and grow and grow ever since probably like 2021 times. So this is something I want you guys to keep an eye out for. And you can see the fact here of just how many millions this industry has increased in. So that's the first point. The second point is, and by the way, this is good from a company standpoint and a crypto standpoint. So you get the best of both worlds. Like XRP is the crypto, like any positive news of the company Ripple, it's going to have an effect on XRP. Any positive news of XRP, the crypto, right, and the developments with the crypto itself, is going to affect the company Ripple. So these are both pros. And I've spoken about IPOs. Ripple is an IPO that's going to happen in the next 365 days. So if I was you, I would write down Ripple 2026, 2027, because that's an IPO that is imminent. And that's something which you want to have exposure to. The next thing is Morgan Stanley Bitcoin Trust as BTC. Really simple, guys. Morgan Stanley is one of the world's largest investment banks. Some of you probably bank with them. Morgan Stanley are behind some of the crypto companies and some other stocks, and they are the financial investors behind them. So that's some research that you might stumble across. And Bitcoin Trust, basically, it's just a fund. And so they've been adding BTC to their portfolio. And the key word to this article here is quietly. Gil mentioned this earlier, right? Like Bitcoin's been dropping. We all know this. We see it's been going down and down and down. I want to say it's like 55% from all-time highs or so. And so while that's been going on, some companies are just completely getting liquidated, but also some companies are buying. And here's the thing, guys. when these big companies, these big firms such as Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, the positive about those firms, guys, that I want you to keep in mind is that when there's large volatility, high volatility, they don't go bust. Like they don't. We always want high returns in crypto, which we know comes with high risk. Same thing with stocks. And it sounds all well and good, but when the market is down, when Bitcoin is down 55% from all-time highs, those are the times that you wish you had more exposure to firms that are not shaky, to firms that have an unlimited source of capital. JP Morgan, like they have an unlimited source of capital. And that's when you wish you're like, damn, I wish I was more diversified. I wish I had higher exposure to the bigger banks, to the bigger stocks, to the bigger cryptos. And so this is why you don't want to make regrettable decisions. And this is why it's a good reminder of like, you don't have to be more conservative, but you have to be smart and understand that, hey, Morgan Stanley aren't going bankrupt anytime soon. So yes, they have been buying Bitcoin, but you want to know what other companies been doing? They've been selling Bitcoin because they need the cash. So it's key to understand. And so here, with the Bitcoin sell-off, as you can tell, it's going way below 70K. Morgan have just saying, hey, like this is the perfect buying opportunity. I'm going to buy more. And we know this, right? In quiet times, in high volatility times to the downside, some people buy and then other people are selling. And you want to make sure you're on that buy side. MicroStrategy, I'm going to speak about shortly. They're a company that's actually been pausing like buying because I wouldn't say they're struggling, but they're kind of feeling the effects of this downturn, whereas, yeah, Morgan Stanley aren't. So that's some news I wanted you to keep an eye out. Now, the next thing is stablecoin rewards rules, and this comes over here. So we've spoke about stablecoins a lot, and there's so many different companies of stablecoins. You know, we have PayPal, obviously we have Circle, and we have many smaller firms creating stablecoins because of the Clarity Act that's progressing, the Genius Act that's progressing, all of these acts, the Anti-CBDC Act, where the central bank, Federal Reserve, won't be able to create their own stablecoin because it negatively like impacts freedom and whatever amendment it doesn't suit in the Constitution. But that's basically a big deal right now. And so many companies are feeling more positive about creating a stablecoin. However, I can tell you guys from personal experience, and Gil probably knows as well, is don't be fooled by high yield with these stablecoins, right? Yield means the percent you get every single year. You're going to see stablecoins, guys, in bullish environments. You're going to see stablecoins give you 10% a year. Stablecoins give you 25% a year, maybe even 30% a year. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, Jean-Luc, I put in $1,000 in a stablecoin. Right, it's 1-to-1 pegged with the dollar, so it's my safe haven. You put your money from the bank, which is fiat. That's what they say in crypto. You go from bank fiat into centralized exchange, maybe like a Kraken or like a Coinbase, and then in that centralized exchange, you convert that fiat, that $1,000 into USDC, for example, or into DAI, DAI, and now you're like, great, I'm getting 2% on my USDC for my $1,000. 2% of $1,000 is $20. So Jean-Luc, I get $1,020 is my balance at the end of the year. Amazing. Right. But now you hear about this stablecoin that gives you 30% yield just for keeping the damn thing. So you're like, oh my gosh, instead of it being $1,020 at the end of the year, Jean-Luc, I get $1,300. Like, this is way better. Yes, I'm gonna go for that stablecoin. Forget USDC. I'm going into this one. But then you never considered the fact that, oh my gosh, how are they able to give such high yield? Yield is interest. How are they able to do that? You ever ask yourself that question? Well, the answer is this. Sometimes the yield is unsustainable. It's attractive for the short term, but it's unsustainable because if the market goes down, do they have the reserves? Do they have the cash on hand to continue providing that 30% yield every single year? The answer is often no. And when they don't have the reserves, your $1,300, yeah, guys, it might lose its 1-to-1 peg. Now you see $1,000, $900, $700. You're like, what? Like, stablecoin is meant to be stable. Like, what's going on? Well, sorry, you went for fast, short returns, high returns, and now you're seeing the negative effects of that. So I'm speaking from personal experience. It's not always about the highest yield crypto or the highest dividend paying stock, guys. You got to remember the fundamentals and how these projects actually work. How do they attract people to it, right? That goes down to marketing. That goes down to the white paper. The white paper is like, the crypto project's roadmap. It's the crypto project's future. It's the crypto project's economics, right? Like it's all the details. But that's the kind of stuff that you want to look at before you plant your money in there. Because hey, here's a key concept, guys. If you can't manage $1,000 portfolio, you cannot manage $100,000 portfolio. You can't. And I know from personal experience, trust me, because I mismanaged years ago a small portfolio, and like I'm expecting myself now with 100 grand to manage a higher portfolio, and see success. It's not going to happen. How you treat the small money is exactly how you treat the big money. It's kind of like when people say, oh, when I'm rich, I'm going to donate money, 10% of my income. Okay, that's a lie. Because with your 30 grand income right now, like if you're not willing to donate 10% of that, you will not donate 10% of 3 million when you become a millionaire. That's a lie. So remember, what you do with the small stuff, it's exactly how you're going to behave with the big stuff. So treat your smaller portfolio like you would treat a bigger portfolio. Now, okay, you might have a slight increased level of risk with a smaller portfolio because it's natural, right? Like 10% of $10,000, 1,000, like, all right, maybe you stretch it to like 15%. Maybe you have like a slightly more aggressive portfolio, but the idea is you do not want to become a degenerate and say, hey, I need to flip this 10 into 50. Because guess what? You want to know what's going to happen when you have that mindset? You're going to get 50 and you're going to say, I'm going to flip this 50 into 500K. Oh my God. And the moment you think like that is the moment the entire account's bust. I'm telling you, like personal experience. So make sure you understand that key concept, because as we've spoken about, 90% of what we do is about the mindset rather than the actual technicals itself. The final thing I want to speak about, guys, this is actually the biggest thing I want to speak about, is MicroStrategy. Put a 5 in the chat if this is making sense first, though, because I'm going to talk about MicroStrategy for the next 7 minutes. But put a 10 in the chat if this is 10. Yeah, put a 10 in the chat. This is making some sense. You guys are getting some level of education here, yeah? All right, amazing. I see Janice here. I see Deborah here. Cool. I see Dylan here. I see Jojo here. Amazing, amazing. So put a 10 in the chat. If you guys are following, you guys are with me so far. So I'm going to speak about one company here called MicroStrategy. Some of you guys have heard about it. Some of you guys haven't. But MicroStrategy is one of the largest institutional holders of Bitcoin. That's why it's really important. One of the largest institutional holders of Bitcoin, and it's a company, right? And it's not only a company, it's a publicly traded company. You guys can buy this stock, freely. It's probably on your Fidelities, your Charles Schwab. It's probably on many, many US-based brokerage firms. And so MicroStrategy, it's founded by a guy called Michael Saylor. He's really popular in the space. If you ever want to learn more about crypto and markets, just go watch Michael Saylor's podcast and interviews on YouTube. It's really intellectual, and you'll learn a lot about the microeconomics. And so all it is a software company with a Bitcoin treasury. Treasury is a fancy word for like fund. It's a type of fund, basically. And so they do a few things, MicroStrategy. They focus on data analytics, business intelligence, AI-powered analytics, and also Bitcoin strategy, right? Meaning that they acquire BTC, and that's one of their main functions now. But that wasn't something that they started back in 2008. That was something more in the past 5 to 10 years. It's more recent. And so MicroStrategy is cool because it allows you to buy the stock. It allows you to have shares in the company which actually buys Bitcoin. So what you have is you have some of the traditional side because it's a share and it's not tokenized, but then you also have the more, I wouldn't say decentralized, but you have more the digital space because you still get exposure to Bitcoin, but just in a different format. So when it comes to diversification, this is a reasonable option for you guys. And so there are some risks involved with this company, even though it's one of the largest institutional holders. Number one is the Bitcoin volatility. It's great because if Bitcoin goes up, like you see some of those returns too. But if it goes down, like you face heavy downside risk. And then number two is their debt obligations. So they do offer dividends, right? Which is just like staking in crypto. You can get shares every single year or every quarter just for holding the actual stock itself. But that could be a risk, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, if the dividends is too high, and the market's going down because they're reliant on crypto's performance, now you've got this like mismatch where like they may not have enough cash like to actually provide that dividends. And this is where you dive into Yahoo Finance and you look at the income statement, right? And you look at the cash flow and you look at the revenue, and you can kind of rate it out of 5. Remember, we've had a session about that, how to rate a stock, out of 5, A grade, B grade, C grade stocks. And you can rate it and you can make your own objective judgment from doing that analysis, right? But they actually have 2 forms of stock, right? They have MicroStrategy, which MSTR, and they have STRC. And there's differences between the 2. But I wanted to bring this up to your attention because MicroStrategy, they actually have been, I wouldn't say struggling, but the performance has been recently poor. And that's because of Bitcoin dropping, but it's also because of how largely exposed they are to Bitcoin. So they faced the stock, meaning they have faced a 2-year low. And so people are urging Michael Saylor to stop buying Bitcoin because of that. And so I want to make a key distinction, guys. When you're a stock, when you're a company, you have fiduciary responsibilities, meaning you have investors and your responsibility is to fulfill them. And so they face the pressure of those investors being like, hey, founder Michael Saylor, like market's down. Like we're actually seeing downturns for the first time in many months or many years. I want you to stop buying Bitcoin. And like almost regardless of what the founder or management team think about that, they have to fulfill certain obligations from their investors. And that's the main goal of a public company. So yeah, so they're being urged to pause buying Bitcoin. Now, think about this. People are telling them to stop buying because of how the stock is going down and down and down. But then Morgan Stanley, they're buying. You guys see the difference, right? Between like a large investment bank, a big firm, and MicroStrategy, which has responsibilities to investors of like, hey, we want you to stop buying. And then JP Morgan's like, I want to continue buying. Like, so you can see the difference here. And that's important as an investor to understand. So MicroStrategy, I want you guys to keep an eye on it because MSTR here is a publicly traded stock. And I know that there are many, many, many high net worth individuals who have exposure to MicroStrategy because it gives you some Bitcoin exposure without being a full crypto degenerate, right? Like it gives you a little bit of that, but it's still partly traditional. So keep an eye on MicroStrategy, family, because this is something you may want to add to your portfolio. Keep an eye on let me get the exact thing, on STRC, which is also a part of MicroStrategy, also a part of Strategy Company, but it's a slightly different stock. Those are 2 companies I want you to keep an eye out for. Also remember Ripple as the company IPOing, keep an eye out for that. And also remember with stable coins, you want to be cautious when it comes to the level of yield that these new stablecoin companies are providing you. So that's my segment, family. I hope you learned 1 or 2 things on this call. Put a 5 in the chat if this was useful. I do dive into the more sometimes advanced topics, but I try to break it down and make it as simple as possible. But yes, we will be back next week as usual for crypto and assets. You can find these sessions on YouTube, on the Powerhouse University YouTube, under the live section. And I look forward to seeing you guys on our call next week, Saturday as well. Have a great weekend, family, and we'll speak soon.